He wrote one of the very first essays on camp, and it appeared in Advocate May 19th, 1976. Here's just a few opening pages. There is a little-known Catholic church on New York's West Side which has come to be known in limited circles as a campy place to go to church. The reason for this sudden exodus to worship by essentially all-night diner types is unclear all week, when the church ritual is pretty tame. Aside from a few house jewels and some fancy gold robes, nothing flashier than a satin pump is in evidence. No, the real show is on a hot holiday like Easter Sunday. Suddenly, as Joseph von Sternberg's The Scarlet Empress and Marlene Dietrich is marrying the Mad Prince amidst the ornate splendor of a Russian cathedral, the choir is belting out Gregorian chants as if they were auditioning for the Pope, and the gowns lack only feathers to be contenders for the Edith Head Gives Good Costume Awards. The killer, though, is the incense. You can't see 2 feet ahead of you, and it hangs in the air. A few discreet gags give way to barely controlled giggling. Welcome to the church some of us know as Smoky Marys. As Susan Sontag noted in her famous essay, camp is the love of the extravagant, the exaggerated, converting the serious into the frivolous, or vice versa. It's a sensibility rather than an idea, and exists in a rarefied atmosphere of esoterica. Religion, because of its serious preoccupation with ritual and spirit of grand extravagance, has always been a target of camp. When Francis Spellman was Cardinal of New York City, there was a widely circulated story about the time Spellman was bearing the incense, which hangs on a chain at High Mass in St. Patrick's Cathedral. Another cardinal seated near the altar leaned over as Spellman approached and whispered, "Psst, Franny, the hat is divine, and your coat is heavenly, but your pocketbook is on fire." It's a way of deflating the pomp and making the most of the circumstances at the same time. For camp is a sensibility best understood by select groups who are privy to a special view from their rarefied position. To discuss camp, therefore, is like smashing a toy to see what makes it run. To discuss the essence of camp is without the essence. The essence of camp is the spoken amusement derived from knowing something is camp, without ever having to explain why. Nobody asked Carmen Miranda why she wore 10-inch heels and danced around with a dozen bananas on her head. Carmen Miranda was just too much. To gay men, camp humor has been both a lifeline and an anchor. Camp humor is not necessarily gay humor. Paintings of Jesus in which the eyes follow you across the room are camp. Peter Lamangello is camp. Even John Wayne is camp, but for the reason that this is an exaggeration of the masculine role, bringing him closer to gay camp than he'd feel comfy with if he knew what it was. No, camp is not necessarily gay humor, but it has been discreetly noted that gay people have been in its vanguard. Since camp flourishes in urban cliques and is something of a secret code, it has become one of the mainstays of an almost ethnic humor which has been formed for defense purposes over the years. Because camp seeks to comfort and is largely a generous rather than a selfish feeling, it has also operated in a human sense, aiding people in forming images with which they feel comfortable in a hostile culture. A look at some camp expressions finds that they neutralize any threat or ignore disturbing reality. Please become Alice Bluegown or Tilly La. It's not the only way of minimizing the danger, but couches it in a feminine or non-threatening term. It's not by accident that the phrase, "Get you, Mary," is always directed at gay men. It's easy to see why a covert society would take a sensibility glorifying artifice and the, quote, unnatural, unquote, and use it to parody its own image. For this reason, camp is often sexist. The American Heritage Dictionary defines the verb to camp as, quote, to act in an outlandish or effeminate manner, end quote. According to the Queen's Vernacular, a gay lexicon by Bruce Rogers, the word comes from 16th century England, where camping meant men working in a theatrical play in women's costumes. Camping it up, therefore, became a play on what society said all gay men were like, implying that gay men were effeminate, like women, and less than, quote, real men. In Fire Island's Cherry Grove, there is a large man called the Infantata. The Infantata presides over the monster restaurant with a devastating invective and the largest collection of day-glow Kafkans on the East Coast. The Infantata's favorite movie is Cobra Woman. And he is always screaming, "Give me those Cobra jewels," at unsuspecting straight tourists. The Infantata teaches high school during the winter. The Infantata is a camp. In the early days in Paterson, New Jersey, there was a man called David Kerwin. David was a little hard of hearing, but he never let it get in his way. One evening, David was stopped by a policeman while driving a car containing several drag queens named Brandy and some rough trade. By the way, David was always talking like Judy Holliday in Born Yesterday. The conversation went something like this. "What's your name?" "David Kerwin." "Where do you live?" "I told you, David Kerwin." "What are you, a wise guy?" David turning to the other passengers in the car. "Who's she calling a cocksucker?" David Kerwin was at camp.